In 1922, when British archaeologist Howard Carter cracked open the sealed antechamber of Tutankhamun's tomb, the world held its breath for the gold, the sarcophagi, the carved alabaster, the painted gods staring out from 3,300 years of unbroken darkness. And they found all of it, but the grain went largely unreported. Tucked into sealed clay vessels, stored with the same deliberate care as the jewelry and the weapons and the ritual oils, was a tiny cereal, the smallest commercially grown grain on Earth. Seeds so minute that thousands of them weigh barely a gram. Scientists who later analyzed the contents confirmed that someone, a high priest, an embalmer, a royal servant, had placed this grain inside a pharaoh's tomb as provision for the afterlife. You do not entrust a weed to the eternal journey of your king. The grain was Fonio, Digitaria exilis, a member of the same genus that your neighbor is currently dissolving with a lawn spray that carries a warning label. The genus is Digitaria, and the species spreading flat across your driveway right now, cracking through gravel, threading up through compacted clay, sprawling against your sidewalk in the July heat, is its close cousin. The one you were taught from the moment you bought your first house to kill on sight. They call it crabgrass. Crabgrass is, by any honest measurement, one of the most resilient, nutritionally dense, and agriculturally versatile plants on Earth. It grows in soils that would starve most food crops. It produces grain with more protein per gram than many commercial supplements. It was deliberately imported into the United States by the federal government in 1849, precisely because it was extraordinary. And today, Americans spend billions of dollars every single year trying to erase it. Before the history, the numbers. Because the numbers are where this story stops being interesting and starts being something else entirely. Crabgrass grain contains between 8 and 21% crude protein, depending on the variety and the stage of harvest. North Carolina State University researchers documented the upper range of 21%, a figure that sits comfortably above what most commercial whey protein powders deliver before processing and packaging. Total digestible nutrients reach up to 64%. This is the figure that farmers and livestock scientists use to determine how much of what an animal consumes actually becomes energy, muscle, and milk. At 64% total digestible nutrients, crabgrass outperforms Bermuda grass. It outperforms most cool season perennial grasses during summer months. University of Alabama extension trials showed beef cattle gaining up to 2 pounds per head per day, grazing on nothing but crabgrass. 2 pounds per day. From a weed you spent $45 trying to kill last April. The mineral profile is not an afterthought. Crabgrass is a documented source of calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, and iron. It contains fiber in concentrations that support gut health. At zero nitrogen fertilization in documented North Carolina State University trials, crabgrass at 12% crude protein alone fully satisfied the daily nutritional requirements of a mature lactating beef cow, providing 18 pounds of total digestible nutrients against a daily requirement of 16.9. It feeds a 600-pound animal for free from a crack in the pavement. This plant did not become nutritious recently. It has been feeding civilizations for longer than most civilizations have existed. Stone Age settlements in Switzerland, communities that predate the Roman Empire by thousands of years, show cultivated crabgrass woven into the agricultural fabric of daily life. By 2700 BC, it was an established and documented food crop in China. Not a foraged weed, a planted crop. In West Africa, a species so closely related to common crabgrass that it shares the same genus, Digitaria exilis, known throughout the Sahel as Fonio, is possibly the oldest cultivated cereal on the African continent. The National Academy of Sciences, in their landmark volume Lost Crops of Africa, described Fonio as probably the oldest African cereal grown across 300,000 hectares of land, feeding 3 to 4 million people annually and thriving on poor, sandy, acidic ironstone soils that pearl millet and sorghum cannot survive. Fonio was not peasant food. In multiple West African cultures, the National Academy documents that fonio was reserved specifically for chiefs, royalty, and sacred ceremonies. It formed part of the traditional bride price. It was placed in tombs because no grain more worthy of the afterlife could be named. In some communities, it still carries that weight. It is used in ancestor worship. It appears at the table when the occasion demands that food carry meaning beyond nutrition. In medieval Europe, Slavic populations including Poles, Czechs, Slovaks and Hungarians harvested and cultivated Digitaria sanguinalis, the exact species now classified as a lawn pest across North America. They called it casa. They cooked it into soups and thick porridges through the cold months of Eastern European winters. It was reliable, nourishing and present when other crops were not. They were not eating a weed, they were eating a grain that had simply not yet been rebranded as one. In 1849, the United States Patent Office, the federal body that handled agricultural development before the United States Department of Agriculture formally existed, deliberately imported crabgrass seeds into the United States as forage. The purpose was explicit. It was introduced as forage, a government investment in livestock resilience and agricultural productivity. That is not speculation. That is documented federal agricultural history. Eastern European immigrants who arrived through the 19th and early 20th centuries brought more crabgrass with them intentionally. They recognized it. They had grown it. They knew what it was and what it could do. Then corn economics changed. Then wheat became the architecture of industrial farming. Then, after World War II, the suburban lawn emerged, a cultural construction, not an agricultural one, and the status of every plant that was not a monoculture of uniform grass was permanently reclassified. Not by scientists, not by agronomists, by marketing departments. In the late 1940s, the O.M. Scott & Sons Company released one of the first selective herbicides for residential use. What followed was not horticulture, it was industry architecture. The lawn care chemical market that emerged was worth $12.5 billion, and it was built not on the biology of healthy soil, but on the managed anxiety of homeowners who had been systematically taught that their value as neighbors could be read in the uniformity of their front yards. The global herbicide market today sits at $34.9 billion. It is projected to reach $56.8 billion by 2034. Crabgrass by volume is one of the primary revenue targets. The plant the federal government introduced as an agricultural asset is now one of the primary drivers of revenue for the companies that manufacture the chemicals designed to eliminate it. The science never changed. The protein was always there. The digestibility was always there. The drought tolerance was always there. The only thing that changed was who was paying for a new story about what a lawn should look like. The nutritional record is not even the entire record. A 2021 review published in the Journal of Phytopharmacology examined the Digitaria genus across clinical and laboratory settings. Researchers documented anti-inflammatory activity, anti-ulcer properties, anti-diabetic potential, and anthelmintic effects that demonstrated capacity to expel internal parasites. Preliminary antidepressant properties were observed in early models. Traditional medicine systems across Asia have used crabgrass for centuries to address inflammation, joint pain, and chronic swelling. The bioactive compounds responsible for these effects, the same compounds that allow the plant to survive in thin, hostile, compacted soil, are the compounds that interact with inflammatory pathways in mammalian tissue. The plant growing between your paving stones carries a more complete medicinal record than most of what is sold behind the pharmacy counter. Crabgrass is a warm season annual. It germinates when soil temperatures cross 55 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. This is why it appears to materialize from nothing in early summer. The lawn is already green, already established, and then suddenly crabgrass arrives everywhere at once. This is not aggression, it is precision timing. The plant has evolved to occupy the exact biological window when summer heat disables cool season grasses and bare soil warms to the threshold of germination. It is not invading. It is filling a vacancy, the lawn created by being imperfect, which every lawn is. The stems grow outward and flat from a central crown, radiating low to the ground, mimicking the posture that earned it its common name. The seed heads emerge on finger-like spikes, and this is where the genus name Digitaria comes from, the Latin word for finger. The seeds are edible. Gathered in late summer, dried and used the way any small grain is used, ground into flour, cooked into porridge, folded into soup. The flavor is mild and faintly nutty, not the taste of something eaten out of desperation, the taste of something a person would choose. The young leaves are edible raw. The plant can be juiced, dried, and brewed into tea. Livestock, when given open pasture choice, preferentially select crabgrass over competing grasses. Animal behavior, in the absence of marketing, is an honest nutritional instrument. The United States protein supplements market was valued at $10.49 billion in 2024. It is projected to reach $24.17 billion by 2034. Americans are spending $10 billion annually on processed, manufactured, packaged, and refrigerated protein products, many of which trace their protein back to industrial grain crops that require mechanized farming, synthetic fertilizer, cold chain logistics, and single-use plastic packaging from processing facility to warehouse to store, shelf to gym bag. Outside the same gym, in the strip of compacted soil between the asphalt and the concrete curb, crabgrass is growing without being asked. It requires no irrigation. It requires no fertilizer beyond what already sits in the soil. It has survived documented droughts that eliminated competing vegetation entirely. It does not need a supply chain. It does not need refrigeration. It does not need a label because it has no ingredients to list. The protein was always free. The decision to make protein expensive was a business decision, not a biological one. Back to that sealed clay vessel in the tomb of a pharaoh. The grain inside was not placed there accidentally. Egyptian mortuary practice was precise to the point of obsession. Every object in that chamber was selected with intention. The grain was provision. It was the acknowledgement that even a god king in the eternal unknown beyond death would need something to eat. They chose digitaria. Not wheat, not barley, not emmer. The people who engineered the pyramids, who developed written language, who mapped the movements of stars with instruments we still do not fully understand. Those people, when they had to choose the most important grain to send with their king into eternity, chose the one that today grows in your driveway. The same plant is still there. It has not changed. Its protein has not diminished. Its resilience has not faded. Its relationship with the animals that eat it has not broken. We changed. We were sold a different story about what a lawn should look like and what a weed is allowed to be. And somewhere between that sealed pharaoh's tomb and your Sunday afternoon with a spray bottle, something was lost that was never ours to lose. Every share keeps the record alive. Every comment keeps the conversation open. If what you just learned changes anything about how you see the ground beneath your feet, subscribe, because the next plant they told you to poison has a story just as long and just as old and just as deliberately buried.